What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making this a part of your day. However you're watching, however you're following the show, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show, or you can keep this all to your stony lonesome and listen to me in your ear holes for years to come just by yourself. So we appreciate all forms of supporting the Ben Garcia Show. There's a lot of things to get to today, guys. We had a massive Thursday night football game last night where I'm basically having to watch from the Suns arena because I'm also covering the Phoenix Suns for Locked On Suns. And we got a Cardinal game that we got to preview. We got to talk about that Cardinal game. And if we have some time, I've got some thoughts on a different topic. So with all that being said, let's jump right into it. All right, let's start off where we always start off on a Friday morning here on the Ben Garcia Show. And let's get it kicked off with the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers last night, with the Chargers beating the Broncos 34-27. You know, if there was anything, I guess if you could ever call something a good loss, and I don't pander to this often because I think you lost. How is that good? And being an ultra-competitive person that I am, there's very rare instances where you can call something a rare good loss. And the Denver Broncos had that last night. You're going on the road, rookie quarterback, where rookie quarterbacks tend to not play very well on short weeks in their rookie season. There's that issue, right? But I know everyone is giving Bo Nix some trouble because a lot of his passes were right around the line of scrimmage or right in front of the line of scrimmage, and he's a rookie. I'm not going to go after Bo Nix for some of the rookie tendencies. He throws the ball short, not really very far past the line of scrimmage for now. Now, if those things don't ever change, if they never trust him to open up the playbook, then sure, we'll have a conversation about that being Bo Nix. But for now, he looks like he's on the Brock Purdy path of franchise quarterbacks, where right now, I think it's fair to say, we'll just go right here. I think it's fair to say right now, Bo Nix's trajectory looks very close to the Brock Purdy tier of quarterbacks, the Tua Tagovailoa tiers of quarterbacks, the Dak Prescott tiers of quarterbacks, where you can surround him with a bunch of talent, and with really good coaching, he can be a very productive quarterback. And there's no shame in that. That is a quarterback that can win a lot of games. Dak Prescott's been in the playoffs, Tua Tagovailoa's been in the playoffs, and Brock Purdy has been to the Super Bowl. So you can win with Bo Nix. This is not a slight on Bo Nix. But what I'm saying is he has probably a little bit weaker of an arm than others. He's got some limitations, but he seems like a very bright kid, coachable, and if you surround him with a decent amount of talent, he could be very, very good. Almost to the elite tier. That's what he can look like with a bunch of surrounding talent. And right now, with all the promise that Bo Nix has showed early on in the season, even if it's a lot of dinking and dunking, the future is incredibly bright in Denver with the tandem of Sean Payton and Bo Nix. And over the years, if you can take advantage of that rookie contract, you will be 4 to 5 years of consistent winning for the Denver Broncos. That's what the window is for Bo Nix. And then you have an opportunity a little bit down the road to potentially see what kind of shorter, or I guess I should say, what kind of smaller contract would Bo Nix potentially be willing to take. Now, this idea that any quarterback is ever going back to $40 million is insane. But at that point, 5 years from now, when quarterbacks are making nearly $80 million a year, could you get Bo Nix to take 55? And at that point, that's where I think Bo Nix succeeds. In the tier 2 echelon of quarterbacks, that's what I think his ceiling is right now, where he can help make some plays, he can get you into the playoffs, but if you're ever going to win a championship with him, you got to help bolster that roster around him. Not a slight. Not a slight. Brock Purdy went to a Super Bowl. Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, both guys that have consistently made the playoffs. It just seems like When people pick on Bo Nix for being mostly a dink and dunk quarterback last night, I think it's more so, no, that's what he is for right now, but there is a ceiling to his game given some of his physical limitations. Now, I also just wanted to mention really quickly before I get into my main point of what I wanted to talk about, which is probably something I probably should have started the show with, but I got a little carried away with Bo Nix. Call me an NFL casual. Call me a sports broadcaster wannabe. But I would love to hear from my glorious subscribers. Did you have any idea that a free kick exists in the NFL landscape in any form? I was watching that game last night at Footprint Center while I'm at the Suns game, doing both jobs at once, and I see them line up for the most bizarre field goal ever, and I had to wait for someone to explain it to me. And the fact that that's in the rule book, and it happened once last night, and it hasn't happened in like 50 years or something, that is the stupidest rule in sports. I mean, that is ridiculous. That is crazy that you just automatically get a free 3 points if you convert on a fair catch as the time expires. I'd never heard of it, didn't know it was a thing, and I'd be more than curious to know if my subscribers had ever seen or heard of something like that. So that was interesting from last night. Little history made in the most bizarre way possible. Let's talk about this. I've talked about Justin Herbert in more ways than one. I'm a big fan of quarterbacks. I love to have a strong opinion. But I don't think last night was necessarily about how great Justin Herbert is. I think last night was a really good example of how great coaching is. What Jim Harbaugh has done with the Los Angeles Chargers that have been a little bit of a laughing stock over the past decade and seen as cheap is nothing short of fascinating and amazing. He has completely turned around what has been a losing franchise over the past half decade to decade and did it in one season. You know, it's the difference between poverty organizations and cheap organizations and organizations that are willing to spend the money. It is not hard to be viable in this league. It is not hard to be stable in this league. It's will your ownership fork up the money. And Jim Harbaugh, what he's done to turn around this Chargers organization in 1 year is nothing short of highly impressive. Just highly impressive. The Bears said no to Jim Harbaugh and said yes to Matt Eberflus. You know what that is? Incompetent coaching. Where do you think Caleb Williams would be if he had Jim Harbaugh today? Probably a potential playoff team, because that's where all Jim Harbaugh's team goes. The Chargers reportedly were not Jim Harbaugh's first choice. Turns out he wanted the Bears job. And it's the difference between competent organizations and incompetent organizations, and spending the money and not spending the money. You know, sometimes people will look at some of the highest contracts for coaches and say, wow, that's a lot of money for a head coach. First off, it's not in the salary cap. And secondly, yeah, it's a lot of money to win. Why is it that, sure, maybe it's a lot of money for some of these head coaches, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh. Why is it all of them win? Sean McVay, all of them. The most expensive head coaches are always the ones that bring you the most W's. Now, maybe at first you're finding a guy like a Dan Campbell or whoever it is, and you get them cheap in the beginning. But the fact that the Chicago Bears, a team that hung on to Matt Eberflus, and on this show I said, you're going to take Matt Eberflus instead of Vrabel and Harbaugh and all these other head coach, Bill Belichick, all these head coaching candidates out there, and you're going to stick with him? Okay, that just reeks of cheap. Jim Harbaugh has firmly cemented himself in that coach of the year conversation, and he won't win it because it's an expectation for Jim Harbaugh to win. He has won everywhere he's went. Stanford, the Chargers, Michigan, turns around everything. Turns around every organization quickly. Yeah, sometimes he wears people out. That's Jim. Whatever. He's a little quirky. But what he's done to continuously turn around the Chargers in 1 year is nothing short of Coach of the Year candidacy and highly impressive. And it just goes to show you, winning in this league is not difficult. You just have to be committed, both financially and mentally. Are you going to give this team what they need to succeed? Ownership. And that's what the Chargers finally did. Once seen as a cheap organization, shelled out the money for one Jim Harbaugh, and it's going to pay dividends for a decade. And sometimes people will say, oh man, that's a lot of money for a head coach. Well, why do those expensive head coaches always win? I know that's a foreign concept to some of you dysfunctional organizations, but really, it ain't that hard. And we have all this praise for Justin Herbert. Well, man, Herbert, he's a generational talent. $55 million a year. He can do everything except, anything with incompetent head coaching. The NFL is where coaching matters the most, and Herbert is clearly a very good talent, but without coaching, none of it matters. We've seen for years, coaching with mediocre quarterback play, you can get some wins. Or tier 2 quarterback play, you can get some wins. Look at Caleb Williams. Look at Justin Herbert before competent coaching. What happened? It's not hard to win this league. It's not rocket science. Hire a smart head coach, and that is what your team can look like. Pay the price for smart head coaches, smart coaches overall, and good leaders for your team. It's not a conversation of why it's unfair. It's a conversation of, are you committed? And the Chargers were committed. And it's why they're paying dividends this season. And it's why they're going to be a playoff team. All right, it is a football Friday, as everyone says, and no one can come up with a better title for Friday in football, so we're going to steal it as well. The Arizona Cardinals traveling to Carolina to play the Carolina Panthers. Just right off the bat, I thought this was a really interesting stat. So, Kyler, a couple of days ago was asked by, I think my guy Bo Brock over at PHNX Sports, and it was really interesting where here's the statistic right here, where they had said, hey, cold weather, does it bother you? Whatever. And he goes 35 degrees, and he laughed, and some people took it seriously for some reason, but it was clearly a joke. 35 degrees is not necessarily that big of a deal, but here was a really impressive stat through a small sample size for one Kyler Murray. Kyler is 3-1 in outdoor games with a kickoff temperature at or below 45 degrees. Keep in mind, these are things that Tua, Brock Purdy, and other limited quarterbacks have issues with. Kyler, with a kickoff temperature at or below 45 degrees in his career, 8 touchdowns, 2 turnovers, 3-1, and a 103.5 passer rating. You could call that his ability to move. You could call that his accuracy. That is a impressive stat from one Kyler Murray that, if you ask me, I don't think he's ever played particularly bad in these kind of games, but I don't have any memory of him being splendid. So seeing that that's pretty impressive for one Kyler. So that should help ease your pain if there was, or ease your thinking if there was really any thinking to ease with the Arizona Cardinals going into what is a colder temperature game. Listen, I was in Minneapolis less than a month ago, early December of this month, and I'll tell you what, I had never been in that kind of cold temperature before, where it was 2 degrees, but the forecast said it felt like -6 with the wind chill. That, I finally understand what Tua Tagovailoa and what Brock Purdy are going through, because that is the type of cold that hurts. I was walking backwards half the time because it hurt so bad on my face to have the wind in it. So, highly impressive that Kyler, I'm not sure how many freezing cold games he's played in, but in some of the ones that he has, he's played pretty well. Maybe that's some of his moving, his effectiveness with his legs, but either way, Kyler shouldn't be too much of a worry there, being an outdoor game and it being a little bit colder on Sunday. So let's talk about this game. Last week, we talked about how I saw a title of another video on PHNX Sports. Really good people over there. My guys, Bo Brock, Johnny Venerable, both guys that I know, do very good work. And the title to one of their videos was Get Right Game for the New England Patriots. And I had said, Get Right Game? Are the Cardinals good enough to have a Get Right Game? Right now, are the Cardinals that much better than the New England Patriots? And I feel like I was right. The Cardinals won that game against the New England Patriots, and it looked like a bigger number than it was. But that game was always in striking distance for the Patriots, where at one point early in that half, if they're getting a touchdown on that first drive, we're talking about a 13-10 game and not a 13-6 game or whatever. So that game was decently close. And for me, the Cardinals did show me that they are pretty significantly better than the New England Patriots. Call it being at home, call it whatever, but they ran the ball down their throats, and it was horrendous in that game. You know, I'll tell you this, though. Just really quickly, I'm not going to pick the Panthers in this game because I don't like to do I've just got a gut feeling thing. That's not a reason. That's not an opinion. That's just a feeling of how a game is going to go, and I don't roll that way. I will give you what I think the logical answer would be and what the statistics tell me, combined with a logical opinion. But I'll tell you this, I have a really bad feeling about this game against the Carolina Panthers this weekend. I'm still going to pick the Cardinals. I'll give you a final score prediction at the end, but I just have a really bad feeling about this Panthers game. This week, people are starting to call it a little bit of a trap game. Kyler was asked about it. Other players were asked about it. And Kyler had basically said, trap game? Are you kidding me? We have to win every game. This can't be a trap game. I agree. I don't think the Cardinals are good enough right now to be having trap games. I don't know how they could be looking ahead to the Rams or the Niners weeks ahead. You got to take care of business this week or nothing else matters. It's not just the history, but I guess I'll tell you why I have a bad feeling about this weekend. I don't have the greatest of grips with the Cardinals this weekend against the Carolina Panthers, and I'll tell you why I have a little bit of a bad feeling this week. It's not just the history of the Arizona Cardinals against the Carolina Panthers. We all know about 2015. But then it's Cam Newton coming back. It's Christian McCaffrey running all over this team years ago. It was going to Carolina and losing to, I think it was Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. They might have won that game. It might have been a game before that. I think it was Kyler's rookie season where they got down big in that game. I can't exactly remember who the quarterback was in that game. But it's not just the history of the Panthers, which over the past half decade largely owned the Arizona Cardinals. We remember the Cam Newton game. We remember the 2015 game. We remember Cam Newton's return game where they just lose. The Panthers have just been in their head. It's the Panthers are starting to turn a corner that the Arizona Cardinals were in last year. And the Panthers are looking for that signature win that they can point to going into the offseason and say to themselves, hey, we can compete. We can do this. We beat a good team, or what looked to be a good team in the Arizona Cardinals, who were fighting for their playoff lives. And when you combine the fact that the Carolina Panthers are in the same shoes the Arizona Cardinals last year, looking for that signature win to end the season that they can point to and say, look, man, we can compete with the rest of the NFL next year. We just got to tweak a few things. With the history of the Cardinals just not having a good history, winning and losing, mostly losing against the Carolina Panthers, it's the fact that also Bryce Young is playing a little bit better. Dave Canales, the head coach, is coaching up that team to the best of his ability. They've got a decent amount of dudes. This has trouble written all over it. And I think what I'm trying to get to is Gannon's got to get them up and ready to play in this game. We cannot have another 11 a.m. flat Cardinals team coming out and not having the ability to seal the deal. In hindsight, this is a game where the Cardinals need to come in, take care of business, and get ready for the Rams next week on primetime. But listen, I'm an analyst first. I'm a broadcaster first. I'm an opinionist first. I'm a fan second, third, and fourth. It just seems like it's not a great spot for the Cardinals, who have to win this game. And the Carolina Panthers are coming off an embarrassing loss last week to the Cowboys, where they ran all over them. Rico Dowdle looked like prime LaDainian Tomlinson. They're looking for that get-right game. Combine that with the fact that the Cardinals are coming off a win against the Patriots, where they're a little hobbled, just didn't look amazing in that game. You should not expect a blowout in this game. This is going to be a dogfight for the Arizona Cardinals. Bryce Young's playing better. Dave Canales got this team rolling. Kyler has got to show up. But it's not just Kyler. It's got to be Drew Petzing. You got to open up this offense. You got to be able to feed James Conner. And you got to be able to gash that defense that has been given up over the past few weeks a lot of rushing yards. Combine that with the play-action attack. Be able to hit Michael Wilson in stride for a long touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr. in stride for a long touchdown. But if we're talking about a loss on Monday for this Cardinals team because they couldn't take care of business, because they couldn't even get us to the Saturday night must-win game against the Los Angeles Rams, we are having much bigger issues. We are not talking about, no playoffs. We're not talking about missing the playoffs. We're talking about, do we have the right guy in Jonathan Gannon? Do we have the right guy in Kyler Murray? Do we have the worst head coach quarterback combination in the division? That's what we're talking about on Monday if the Cardinals don't win this game. And I just don't have a great feeling about it, given the history of the Carolina Panthers against the Arizona Cardinals and the fact that they're looking for that signature win to end the season that they can point to next year and say, going into the offseason, we can compete with other teams. So, if anything, it's a prime opportunity game for the Panthers, and it's a very scary outing that cannot be taken lightly for the Arizona Cardinals. So, got to get this team up and ready to play, and we have to avoid the really bad conversations that I do not want to have on Monday if this team loses, but that we will have if they do lose. Regardless if Kyler Murray's awesome, regardless if Jonathan Gannon's defense is good and Kyler Murray isn't very good. We're going to talk about, do we have the right head coach? Do we have the right quarterback? Is it the worst tandem in the division? We're going to do all of that. So with that being said, I will take the Cardinals to win this game, but in a very close one. I'm going to call it 27-24 with a big game from James Conner, potentially gashing the Carolina Panthers up and down the field. But make no mistake about it, this will not be a blowout. All right, bear with me. Give me a few moments to talk about this really interesting topic that has been spiraling the NBA world over the past couple of days. Now, listen, if you're new to this channel that has recently been exploding in subscribers and viewership and all that good stuff, I haven't talked a lot of NBA yet, but that is coming. Once the NFL season is over, I'll get into free agency, I'll get into the draft, but I'm also going to talk some NBA. Those are my two top things. I've got a lot of cred in that space where, I've done that on TikTok before, or I do cover the I do cover the Phoenix Suns for the Locked On Podcast Network. You can catch all of my Phoenix Suns opinion centric over there with my guy Brendan Clean of Awful Announcing. But I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about the NBA ratings decline and what is it to blame, right? There is a superiority right now between the casual fan and the high and mighty big-time NBA fan, knows every analytics, the NBA nerd that tells you exactly what works and what doesn't work. We call them NBA purists, like the MLB had the MLB purists. I don't know exactly what the issue is with the NBA and why the ratings are down. But I do know there's a problem. If you're asking me what the main issue is, it's too many fouls, especially late in games, too many touch fouls, and the fact that, man, it is like a YMCA watching these games where it's a lot of three-pointers and a lot of shot chucking in these games. A lot of three-point shots. I think the Pistons and Bulls played a couple of days ago, and they combined for like 60 misses from threes. It was an NBA record. It's not fun to watch. It might be more fundamentally sound, or it might be a better analytically, but it's not always what's best for the sport. But that's not what I want to get to, right? I don't know exactly what the issue is. I think it's kind of a combination of things, and it's things that can be tweaked. But here's the issue. It's the same battle we were fighting with the baseball purists. I love baseball. I don't think I'll ever talk baseball on this show because I am more of a casual than I am an expert on the sport. I love the Diamondbacks. I go to a bunch of Diamondback games, but I don't really have a strong opinion. So it was very easy for me to get rid of the shift, or I like the idea of the golden bat. I just think it's fun, or the pitch clock. None of that stuff bothered me. I was okay with all of it, and I'm still okay with doing it. Now, I think the biggest thing with baseball is, man, cut down on your games, but I don't think that will ever happen. The NBA purists are starting to have some of those similar issues where I saw someone tweet the other day, and a guy I went to college with, I don't want to say we're friends. We obviously don't have any issues with each other, but I would say we're acquaintances. I know him. He knows me. We've had a couple of conversations, but this was before he really hit it big with his show Nerd Session, that being one Logan Camden. He does really good work with another guy I know, Carson Brabber, over at the Volume Sports. And Logan tweeted, I'm so basically sick and tired of the conversation that there's something wrong with the NBA and the NBA is not broken, the NBA is this, the NBA is that. The people are the people are the problem. The problem is not the product. Basically saying the game has never been better. If you think that the game is not fun to watch or there's an issue with it, that's a you issue. That's basically what he was saying. And I quote tweeted it saying, or you know, kind of basically he was pointing at the casuals saying, this is not for you. I believe he said specifically, which was anyone that knows basketball or loves the sport knows there's nothing wrong with it. That's the issue with baseball. Admitting you have an issue is the first step to solving the issue or that being said problem. The people out there that are saying that there's no issues with the NBA's viewership decline and the game has never been better, it's the casuals' fault for the decline of the TV ratings and that it's not the NBA's fault and the game has never been better. My guy, this sport, along with football and along with soccer and along with hockey and along with baseball, the diehards, the fanboys, the watch every single game diehard fan is not what drives the sport. You might not like it, but the only way for every sport to succeed is to have what? The casual fan. Yep, the big C word, the casual fan. You have to have a diverse fan base that just says, oh, well, LeBron's on? Sure, I'll watch that game. I don't really have a team, or I kind of root for the Lakers, but I more so just like watching the product. The casual is what will always drive the NBA, the NFL, baseball, soccer, whatever it is. So you might feel high and mighty because you still love the sport and you love all of the really great stuff it brings. You enjoy watching 73s chucked in a night. Listen, I consider myself a basketball expert. I cover the Phoenix Suns for the Locked On Podcast Network, and even I understand this sport has an issue. I have the credentials. I cover the Phoenix Suns. But the viewership of it is an issue, and not admitting you have a problem and putting the bird box blinders on, that's a you issue. It's not the casuals' fault that they don't want to watch the games. So if there needs to be drastic changes made to the NBA to help with viewership, that should absolutely happen. The baseball purists told us that banning the shift was going to end the sport and implementing the pitch clock would be stupid and the golden at-bat rule wouldn't help anyone. And yet baseball ratings are up. The NFL has constantly tweaked things and the NFL's ratings are up. My guy, I know you're a diehard. I know you consider yourself a purist. You're not a casual. You snub your noses to the casuals. That's a you issue because the sport will never thrive because of the 10% diehards or real basketball fans. It will always survive off the casuals. The people that see a game and go, oh yeah, sure, I'll watch that, but don't deep dive into the analytics. Shooting more three-pointers and getting to the foul line James Harden style or Joel Embiid style or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander style might be the smarter thing to do. But that can be the smarter thing to do with half the audience. What this is and always will be is a business. And the NBA does need to make changes. And you can snub your nose at the casuals who don't like to watch a YMCA three-point contest every time they step into the arena. But those are the people that are driving the sport, not the 10% of real basketball fans or the hardcore fans. I hate to break it to you, but you're just not that important. The NBA will change and you'll still watch it. The NBA, if it doesn't change, people, we have proof, are not watching it. So you can say there's no problem with the NBA or it's the casuals' fault, but my guy, I hate to break it to you. You're part of the problem. The NBA purists who won't change. It's the company that sees it's dying but won't downsize, but won't make drastic changes. That's what the NBA needs to do. And it's not the casuals' fault. It's you for not recognizing there's a problem. And just putting on the bird box blinders and saying that that's not what's happening. That's not the issue. The clear, obvious issue is ratings are down and the NBA needs to make changes. And it's not just the ratings are down this year. They've been consistently declining for years. And if you don't see that there's an issue, my guy, that's a you problem. That ain't a casual problem. And that's where I stand on the NBA ratings talk. And there will be more NBA talk coming later on into the year. While we still have football, that'll be the forefront of everything. But if you want more basketball thoughts, opinions, big Phoenix Suns fan, I cover the Phoenix Suns for the Locked On Podcast Network. You can check out everything on that YouTube channel as well. But that's where I stand on the NBA matters. Thanks so much for tuning into the Ben Garcia Show. Appreciate you guys making us a part of your day. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show. I am starting to get into a little bit of a hurry here. I got to head out to the next thing, but I wanted to make sure I got another show to you guys out this week. That's 2 shows each week over the past month. You are spoiled brats, but hey, I do it for you. I do it for the game I love, which is you guys, the people that keep the lights on here at the Ben Garcia Show. I will see you guys next Tuesday. Don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. Didn't mention that in the beginning, but oh well, that's what happens. You can find that in descriptions below. I will talk to you guys next Tuesday. And until Tuesday, I'm Benjamin Garcia, and it's been the Ben Garcia Show.